Hey everyone, David Chen here, and today I want to talk with you about The Gentleman, which is written and directed by Guy Ritchie, and it's out in theaters right now. The Gentleman sees Guy Ritchie returning back to the genre that made him famous in the first place. I would define it as maybe like the gangster comedy genre. I really enjoyed a lot of Ritchie's earlier films. I'm talking about Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. I'm talking about Snatch. I even enjoyed Rock and Rolla. Wasn't as big of a fan of Revolver, but I've enjoyed some of his other work as well, like the Sherlock Holmes movies and Man from U.N.C.L.E. And so I was actually really excited to see Ritchie return to this space after a while. Aladdin made over $1 billion, but it didn't really feel like a Guy Ritchie movie to me. So it's fun to see Ritchie playing with some of his old toys again and telling this story of Mickey Pearson, played by Matthew McConaughey, who's trying to dominate the United Kingdom weed-selling business, all while fighting off a couple of upstarts, as well as people who would otherwise threaten his empire. So right off the bat, I want to say the movie I think is pretty enjoyable. I think that if you're hoping for a return to form for Guy Ritchie, this movie will give you that. But what are the things that are essential for a Guy Ritchie gangster film? When I think of Guy Ritchie movies, I think of movies that have like a propulsive plot, that have like a lot of momentum, often told using interesting bookended storytelling devices. I think of movies that have really memorable characters that deliver long, badass monologues, that use language in interesting ways, and of course, a bit of the old ultra-violence as well. And I think The Gentleman has all three of those things. If you're looking for that, you're gonna get it when you watch The Gentleman. Matthew McConaughey does a great job playing basically Matthew McConaughey, but I gotta give a shout out to some of the supporting cast in this movie. In particular, Charlie Hunnam. This is probably one of my favorite roles of his. He plays the main character as Consigliere. He proves himself as a true badass who can get stuff done. I haven't seen Hunnam really tackle a role like this before, but he seems both intelligent and capable, and also unwilling to suffer any fools, and I really enjoyed his performance in this movie. People who are fans of Michelle Dockery and Henry Golding might also appreciate their roles in this film, playing against type. They are not really characters who you've seen before, and so I got a big kick out of watching their performances. I thought they all did a great job. However, the movie did leave quite a bit of a bad taste in my mouth, and I think that's basically because it wants us to remember a time when people could be racist and misogynist and hateful to each other without any consequences whatsoever. It wants us to go back to a time before safe spaces and political correctness have taken over our society and say, hey, wasn't it funny when we could just refer to Asian people as Chinamen without any repercussions? And that is just a huge bummer. I mean, I think that there's a lot of jokes about Asian people in this movie. There's a lot of uses of the word Chinaman in this movie. And I'll just say it's a difficult thing to be an Asian American and sit in a theater of largely white people and listen to them laugh at Asian jokes. That's something that I haven't done in a really long time, and I thought I wouldn't ever have to do again. It's clear that Guy Ritchie, and by extension the characters in this film, get a huge kick out of making racial jokes and referring to people with outdated terms and making fun of perceived differences between races. And if you are somebody who feels the same way about those things, I can understand that the last decade or two may feel very alienating and strange, that the things that you used to think were funny are no longer considered funny anymore, or are not considered funny by a lot of people, or put you at threat of being canceled. And that all makes sense to me. Like, I understand the impulse behind that. But at the same time, as I grasp where that very human desire comes from to, like, want to keep your same humor and to want to keep making fun of people, there's a couple things that have revealed themselves to be self-evident in the intervening years. I think one of the reasons is that Asian Americans and people of all different ethnic groups have more of a voice in mainstream culture and have more political power now and can say things like, hey, this is not okay, this is very hurtful, you shouldn't do this, there are actually a lot of us out here who you're referring to when you use these derogatory terms, and it's not cool. And we don't like it, and please stop doing it, and there will be consequences if you continue doing it. And the second thing is, this kind of humor is not particularly amusing anymore. It's pretty played out, it's not particularly innovative, it's not fresh. It's just referring back to this old time when, hey, remember when it used to be okay to say these things? And it doesn't really comment on that at all. I actually think there is a case to be made that one can have characters speak in incredibly taboo and non-politically correct terms if you're trying to make some kind of point about it. One of the shows I love that does this is It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. The characters in this show have done things that theoretically make them completely worthy of cancellation, but I think the reason there hasn't been a major uprising against It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia is because it's always 100% clear that who you're watching are total buffoons that we should not seek to emulate whatsoever, that are terrible, terrible human beings, that are dumb, that do things that are constantly self-defeating. It's extremely clear which side you should be on. Whereas in a movie like The Gentleman, Guy Ritchie very much glamorizes the life of someone like Mickey Pearson. Sure, it's hard, you gotta kill some people and get rid of people encroaching on your turf, but Mickey Pearson is a man's man. He is super smart, super good looking, has an amazing wife, is vicious when he needs to, and he's even only growing marijuana. So he's not even growing a drug that might make you more likely to root against him, like cocaine or heroin. This guy's just someone who many people might want to emulate, if not for the horrifying crimes. And therein lies the problem with the movie's humor. It's not about making any kind of sharp commentary. It's not an exploration of why these kinds of words can be hurtful in different settings. It's not even an exploration of what motivates people to do these kinds of things. It's just this type of humor that you used to remember from back in the day when it was okay to make fun of everyone because of differences in their race and their skin color. And I'm not even going to get to the part of this movie where some of the villains are coded as queer, which has a whole long history. I'll link to an article about it in the description below, but that's kind of not really my battle to fight. I'm more here about the racial humor. The Gentleman is a movie whose tone is set squarely in the past that wants you to remember how good the past was and not reflect critically on it at all. And if that's what you're looking for, you're probably going to enjoy Guy Ritchie's The Gentleman quite a bit. Again, this movie is quite a bit of fun, and I love the story, and I actually really enjoy the way Ritchie deconstructs movies in The Gentleman. I mean, Ritchie has always been known for playing around with the formal rules of visual storytelling, and he certainly does that quite a bit in this movie as well. So there are a lot of things to like. It's just, I wish they hadn't relied on the tired racial humor and slurs, and I think it mars what would have otherwise been a really enjoyable experience. Now, I just want to say one last thing before I wrap up, and that is, a lot of people are going to be tempted to comment, hey, stop being so sensitive. It's just a movie. These people are gangsters. We're not supposed to like them. And that's fine if that's your own experience, but the purpose of this video is for me to share my personal experience, to describe how hurtful it is for me to be sitting in a theater, and these jokes about Asian names are on the screen, and everyone's laughing at them, and I'm an Asian American who's constantly reminded of my differences from the rest of my peers. All that to say, I would love to hear what your personal experience of The Gentleman is, but please let me have my own. And let's celebrate each other's different experiences, because that's what talking about movies and pop culture and art is all about. So I appreciate you getting to the end of this video. Thanks for listening to my thoughts. And if you want to hear more thoughts, hit like or subscribe, hit that notification icon, and stay tuned for more videos like this from me, David Chen. You can also follow me on Twitter, subscribe to my newsletter, or check out my podcast, Culturally Relevant, where I talk about stuff like this all the time. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.